Hello and welcome to the IPSC Connect. I have with me retired General Dr. Anil Kapoor. He was the Director General for the Mechanical and Electronics Engineers in the Indian Army. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's start with the exploring more, since you have handled the supply chain as well, and you were part of maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Some of the challenges that you faced for the supply chain, basically.
That's a good question. You see, the armed forces have a very typical problem on hand. You don't keep a scooter more than 10 years, but we have field deployable equipment which has age of up to 70 years. So anything upward of 30 to 40 years is the norm. So at any point in time, we have 3 generations of equipment. We have the legacy, which may be as old as 60 years plus. We have the contemporary, and we have the state of the art. So that is the bandwidth that you handle. And therefore, the challenge of maintenance, repair, overhaul and operations lies in integrating the legacy with the future. And therefore, there are 2 basic challenges. One is keeping the capability of the legacy equipment current. So how do you ensure high reliability is a great challenge.
Right.
And therefore, we train our men, we train our officers to work with their own hands and make sure that at any point in time, the reliability is best maintained. The second is, how do you handle obsolescence? And since most equipment happens to be ex-import, how do you redesign and improve the product? And that is where the engineering challenges lie. So we look at technology innovation as being one very big ticket that we handle in the army. Of course, we do take all the advantage of the industry and premier academic institutions. And then we look at how do we do product improvement, how do we do technology upgrades, and make sure it is kept state of the art. Now, to give you the magnitude of this problem, at any point in time, we have close to 30,000 pieces of equipment in range and almost 30 lakhs in depth. Right. So that is the quantum of equipment that needs to be touched, and if I may say, the sun never sets for us.
Right. Thank you so much. And since you mentioned a lot of equipments will become obsolete, and then you have another challenge is to have your people skilled, to handle the new technologies. How do you see that? Like how it is done in the Indian Army?
Right. So we call it the worm to tomb concept. So if I'm associated with something that is legacy, while I maintain and retain that expertise, I'm also trained on something that is state of the art. So therefore, that is the bandwidth I handle. So if I'm a radar specialist, as an example, I may have a radar of 70s vintage, which I maintain at one end of the spectrum, maybe for 3 years. And then I am given an upskill and taken to a unit where we have state of the art. And then I maybe come back here. So really speaking, the transfer of knowledge keeps happening.
Right.
And as a maintenance engineer, what you develop is skills, knowledge, and your experience. And that is what carries you through. Lately, we have got into what we call expert systems and condition monitoring. That is to say that today we should use technology for carrying out diagnostics, for carrying out predictive maintenance, for carrying out prescriptive maintenance. So that is a new transition we have started, where while the skill is retained in the hand, you have value-added services which helps you in both diagnosing, carrying out predictive and prescriptive maintenance. Right. So that is the new normal, if I may say, with technology embedded.
Right. And we talked a lot about sustainability. And I know because these are really high value assets, are there any initiatives in terms of sustainability also, or let's say even sometimes green procurement as well? Do you have certain kind of initiatives also in the Indian Army?
Yeah, so that's a very fair one. You see, what happens is, when you look at the life cycle of 40 to 50 years, it's not possible for an equipment to get sustained without a major intervention. So what we do is, depending on the criticality of the equipment, depending on the complexity of the equipment, we have defined some condition-based milestones in the life cycle of a equipment. So we do life cycle management.
Right.
As an example, a tank, we may say, okay, after about 5,000 kilometers of exploitation, if it shows sign of low reliability, I think we need to do a major upgrade. So that's the time we do a major upgrade. And then we give it another 10 years lease of life. So that takes it to 20 years or thereabouts. And then we find, again, there is a little dip in reliability, and that's when we carry out the overhaul.
Right, right.
And therefore, we have cycles of major intervention and overall put in so that the capability and the reliability of equipment in the hands of the soldier is sustained. So that is the life cycle sustenance support practice. And in fact, you'll agree with me, it is full of supply chain challenges.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because most of the spares support or inventory support that you're looking at, those assets are gone.
Right.
More so if it is an imported equipment. So really at every stage, you have to think of reclamation technologies, you have to think of additive manufacturing, and you have to think of alternates to be able to sustain with reliability. So that's a big challenge.
Right. And let's say that technology these days, it's of course not just a jargon, but let's say we are talking about globally. How in your processes you are integrating the technological aspect as well in
Right.
terms of supply chain or even procurement?
That's a very good one again. So, let's look at it from the point of view of, so we have something called the life cycle management concept, which is the management information system. It is like my health record. From the time I am born, I maintain a digital health record, which tells you what in this equipment is failing recurring, what is failing one time, and what is the behavior pattern of this equipment, because each equipment is unique.
Right.
Also, if there are, say, tank T72 as an example, while each tank has its own footprint or signature, we see what is the cumulative signature of tanks. And it gives you a lot of lessons to learn.
Agreed.
To give you an example, in one of the tanks we found that in a particular geography, the radiators were failing in large numbers, which was not happening in another geography or terrain.
True.
So we found that in this terrain, when you deploy this equipment, you need to strengthen the radiator, because the radiator which is there operating in another geography will not do here. So those are the product improvement initiatives, and all this actually is a congregation of technologies. I always feel that technology and innovation is the prime mover of MRO, is the prime mover of sustenance support, is a prime mover of supply chain. And I think today, if I may say, technology innovation is in the centroid of geopolitics, geostrategy,
True.
and geoeconomy. And so from a strategy right down to Gati Shakti, I think the common denominator is technology and innovation.
Right.
And armed forces is cognizant of it and well trained to be creative enough to manage technology and innovation, if not single-handed, with a consortium of industry and academia.
So my next question was basically related to this, like skill building. So what are the initiatives that you take in order to make this, do the skill building of the professionals, especially in army? It could be any. It could be technology, it could be procurement, it could be supply chain. So are there any regular interventions? Of course, one could be from a third party perspective, those who are selling the tools. But internally, how you manage these things?
Right. So therefore, first is whenever we induct any equipment, there's a very formal training which we do for the user and the maintenance agency. And since the quantum may be huge, we go into the concept of train the trainer.
Right.
So few handpicked guys are trained, and then they train the others. So we have our own training institutions where this training is carried out. It's fairly comprehensive in terms of operations, in terms of theory behind it, and in terms of any kind of product improvement initiative that must happen. Then we've got something called maintainability advisory groups. So these are body of subject matter experts for each particular equipment. And they are the ones who analyze the failure patterns as they are happening. They look at technology obsolescence. they'll look at technology upgrades. So that is the other one. And then, of course, we have a lot of learning and development courses which go on periodically.
Right.
That is to say, we have something called annual inoculation in terms of training that we do annually to upgrade ourselves with technology and innovation and with what is happening around the world and within the army. And in addition to that, we have some very periodic, well laid out courses of different denominations, capsule courses which we must do, and that's how we get trained and remain current.
Right.
So learning and development, I think, is part and parcel of our life. And it's when I joined the army, I did not know the amount of studies we do in the army to remain current, to keep our equipment and ourselves abreast. I think that is huge.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir. And it's like an honor to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.